I'm back with another video on the IFBBPRO Media channel. It is Olympia week right now, and what a week. What a week. Lots of stuff I want to talk to you guys about. I also want to give you guys some value, not just listen to me talking for 30 minutes. So you guys already know who I am. IFBBPRO, Nick Justice, full-time coach, full-time bodybuilder, literally. Could here talk to you guys about some super cool things that I don't want to say trending, but are just popular within the coaching space right now, the enhancement space, the peptide space, etc. But first off, I kind of want to just touch on my thoughts on the Olympia since it's the Olympia week. And I kind of just want to give you guys my analysis of what I saw, because obviously I'm with Hostile and Samson's a close friend of mine. You know, Samson got fourth. Okay. So I look at this, Samson going from having that title last year to going down to fourth as a learning curve. Okay. Last year, he brought his absolute best ever. He was better at the Olympia last year than he was in the 2025 Arnold. Okay. At the Olympia, he still could have gotten tighter last year. All right. And that was the feedback that they gave him. I honestly believe that if he would have shown up this year as he did last year in 2024, I think he could have still won and had kept that title. Okay. There was a time during this week when Samson showed me his photos and he was like, yo, what do you think of these? And I saw these photos. I'm like, holy shit, looked insane. And I was very confident that he was going to win it again. But when you get on stage, you get under those lights, and, you know, the week goes on with your peak week and things are getting perfected or not being perfected, you get exposed. And there was a loss of size from the Olympia 2024 to this year's Olympia. And it was clear. It was evident. It was a smaller version of Samson. I'd say it was probably the same conditioned version of Samson. And like, guys, this is me giving critiques about my friend. You know, I'll always critique my friends, and I'm not going to say something that I want to say or that is evident just because they're my friend. And what I'm saying is nothing that Samson and Mel don't know. Okay. They're going to use their feedback this year of, you know what, we tried to push that conditioning even more and we lost some size, and maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we just need to kind of backtrack. We figured out what it takes to get here and what that look yields us. And if they realize like, yep, that was too far, then that's fine. Okay. You guys, we all have ups, we all have downs in life. And Samson's the type of person where he's going to feel this pain. He's going to feel what's going on right now. And he's going to ride the midline. He's not going to wallow in the lows, and he's not going to ride the highs and only think about the highs. He's going to be like, you know what? This is what I feel like. It feels like shit. It fucking hurts. But I need to make improvements. And he's going to make improvements. And he's never had an off season before, guys. Like, he hasn't had a legit off season in years. So I honestly think the most dangerous Samson is yet to come. Okay. And that's really exciting. Like, I'm already excited for the Olympia in 2026. But my thoughts on Derek and Hadi, I wish Hadi would have won. I seriously do. I wish Hadi would have won. I think Hadi's the better bodybuilder. I think he was so much harder. I think he was probably the best Hadi we've seen, in my opinion. You can make an argument for Derek being fuller and bubblier, etc., but that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that doesn't mean you have the better physique. You know, Derek had some larger adductors than Hadi. Hadi had better stripped out hamstrings, though, than Derek. I'd say their conditioning, Hadi's conditioning was far superior than Derek's. His detail, far superior than Derek's. I'm not saying the judges are wrong, but my preference would have been Hadi to win. And that's just who I prefer, and that's just who I'm more of a fan of. And I think Hadi, in terms of who made the most improvements, Hadi and Derek made some crazy improvements in the past year. But Hadi, in my opinion, had more of a complete look in terms of detail and in terms of hardness, condition, and posing and energy, and just, it was a really, really good Hadi. So, not taking anything away from Derek, I just think Hadi won in my book. Classic, one hell of a show for Classic, guys. It was absolutely crazy how Ramon won. Like, I saw that and I'm like, wow, I didn't see that coming at all. And I was at the show and I literally said Mike's name out loud, and I was like, Mike. And then they call Ramon. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, that was nuts. I did a podcast yesterday, the Dumbbells and Doobies podcast me and my boys have, literally where we just get rip shit high and talk about bodybuilding, conspiracies, funny things, stoner talk, etc. Because that's just who we are. We don't talk about just bodybuilding. But obviously yesterday, me being in Vegas and them being back in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I tuned in virtually and we talked about the Olympia the entire time. And we were going pose for pose with top three of Terrence, Ramon, and Mike. It was so close. There was poses I preferred on Ramon over Mike, that I preferred on Ramon or that I preferred on Terrence over Ramon, etc., and vice versa. But I think at the end of the day, it was such a close competition for those two that it was just like a horse apiece. I think both of them could have won it. I think Ramon was harder. I think he had more detail in certain areas. I think he had a little bit more development in the lower body posterior in terms of his adductors were touching and they were thicker. And just because his hamstrings weren't nearly as dug out as Mike's hamstrings in the posterior, I think he closed that gap with his detail in his back. Instead of just thick, dense muscle, he had a little bit less thick, dense muscle than Mike did, but he had more detail elsewhere. Okay. And he had his adductors. He had his adductors touching and showing in his back double and back lat, or not back lat, in back relaxed. And that was something that Mike kind of struggled with presenting because he had to manipulate his posing. And I think that was from him dropping so much weight because he knew he wasn't going to get that cap, or reach his weight cap. So, but man, Terrence showed up and Terrence had one hell of a show. I love Terrence's look. Terrence is a friend of mine, and I think he deserved third. I think he definitely looked insane, looked amazing. And it's just hard on his physique. It's so much smaller than Mike and Ramon's, but third place is a crazy improvement compared to ninth, what he got 2 years ago, I believe, when he fell back super far. So that was insane. Somebody that I know, not know well, but that I know that got fifth was Niall Darwin. Absolutely killed it. Niall looked absolutely insane. He's going to be coming on our podcast, and we're going to be talking to him about it. But I talked to him after the show. He was super excited. Ryan Terry secured the Olympia win again. I wasn't surprised there. Probably the best Brandon Hendrickson we've seen, the best Ali Bilal we've seen, not the best Aaron Banks we've seen, best Corey Morris we've seen. I think it was an insane for men's physique. And Ryan Terry's such a good guy. Ryan Terry is solid. He's a friend of mine. Him and I were in Mexico together, and we've had many conversations and trained together. And I was so happy that he won his third title. So I wasn't surprised though. I knew he was going to win it. And yeah, it was overall a crazy Olympia. It was definitely Olympia for the books. I am just exhausted. I've been meeting a bunch of you guys here, taking photos, filming videos, going to different gyms, etc., going to the expo. One hell of a time. It has been absolutely fantastic. And to all you guys that have stopped me in the gym, stopped me at the expo, etc., and said, hey, said what's up, took a photos, told me stories, shared your progress, etc., I appreciate you a ton. I really do. So, but kind of what I want to get into here with this video is touching on a few topics about some peptides, about the post-show phase, etc. Because what better time to talk about a post-show rebound, quote unquote, okay, or reverse, than right now, all right? And it's after the Olympia, okay? And there's the talk out there about drugs and PEDs is always going to be out there. It's going to be like, yeah, these guys are blasting so much gear and they're about to put on so much more muscle after the Olympia. You know, they're going to start just keep like, that's just like low level bullshit talk. Like people that don't understand pharmacology or pharmacokinetics and how different drugs interact with other drugs, etc., about how the body reacts after such a crazy stressor like a contest prep. People always use the excuse of drugs and want to talk about drugs when they don't understand how the body works. Okay. So it's my goal to kind of tell you what I do in a post-show phase, so that my people can stay healthy and make as much progress as possible in that very sensitive state. But also some things that are very effective that are coming out and trending. And there's a lot of talk out there, you know, a couple of those things being MOTS-C and retatrutide and SLU, some fantastic tools, but they're definitely not needed. Okay. But, you know, to go back to what I was talking about earlier about the post-show phase, I think a lot of people misunderstand, how much drugs or how little drugs you actually need. Okay. In terms of off season, in terms of contest prep, and in terms of what you do in the post-show phase. All right. I know people that are not even pros, that don't compete, that are just influencing, the drug realm, that are on grams of gear, and they don't make any progress. Okay. Because they are constantly redlining their physique. If you take that same approach in the post-show phase and you constantly redline your physique, you're not going to get any traction. If I hop in a sports car, if I hop in a race car, whatever, and I just slam on the gas and I'm redlining those RPMs, I'm not going to get traction. I'm not. Your body is the same way. If you're redlining your food, if you're redlining your training, if you're redlining your drug load, etc., you will not go anywhere. Like, you can only go so far until you hit a wall. Okay. Now, within that post-show phase, you're going to hit a wall pretty quickly if you continue to just redline after a show. If you don't pull back a little bit, now I don't mean drugs right now, but I will get into that. But if you don't pull back and put your body into a parasympathetic state, the power of a parasympathetic state is absolutely amazing. Then your body is going to, at some point, somewhere, some way or another, it's going to give you signs. It's going to pull back for you. Okay. So how I enter a post-show phase with people to see a lot of progress right off the bat, to limit water retention, to limit blood pressure rises from sodium and water, etc. Because if you put on 15 pounds in 1 week from water and glycogen, your blood pressure is going to go up with it. That's inevitable. That's going to happen. There's no chance that your body does not increase its blood pressure if you're putting on 15 pounds in a week or even a couple days from water, from sodium, from glycogen. Okay. So to prevent that from happening, what I do, it's like, let's say somebody wins their show, wins their pro card, wins a pro show or wins a regional show. All right. The night of the show, I'm like, hey, I want you to go out, eat some good food, have a burger, have a steak, if you want some sweets, have some sweets, etc. All right. The next day, I'll have them do a breakfast meal of their choice, making sure that there's protein in there. And that's meal one. Okay. Meal 2 through meal 2, 3, 4 is going to be protein and veggie. And then their 5th meal, I'll throw in a carb source. Okay. That carb source may be Elevate cream of rice. It may be white rice. It may be oats. It may be some pasta, but it's not going to be a carb source like, hey, go out and have tacos and then count the tortillas as tacos. No. All right. So that's one day after the show. All right. Between meal 1 and meal 5, I'm limiting it to protein and veggie and not having any carbohydrates in there. Their water is going to come back to a baseline water intake of probably, it's going to be different per individual, depending on how much water and sodium and electrolyte manipulation that had to be done throughout that peak week. I tend to keep things very consistent and I don't manipulate a whole lot of things with the electrolytes because that can yield a look that is, not advantageous to where we want the physique to go. So water intake is going to be back to their baseline between 4, 5, 6 liters maybe. Okay. But I don't want to jack it up a whole lot and just cause a bunch of water retention. Now, day 3. Okay. I'm going to overload this client with food. All right. And you're probably thinking, oh, hell yeah, Nick's my coach. Like, Nick's the guy. I'm going to go hire Nick now because he's going to give me a fuck ton of food right out the gates after my show. Hold up there. Let me explain to you why I do that. All right. The reason I do that is because every single person, 95% of people, okay, after a show, it's going to be really hard for them to have self-control. It's going to be really hard for them to not to have sweets, to not have other foods that they've just been craving for 20, 24, 26, 30 weeks long on prep. Okay. So what I do is I try to mitigate that as much as possible. So I'm going to bring their food up pretty aggressively from clean food. So I'm gonna get them back on their baseline diet. And remind you, this is this 2 days post-show. Their water intake is back to a baseline. Sodium intake is back to baseline with maybe, let's say, like 4, 5, 6 grams of sodium per day, sometimes even more. All right. And I'm going to, let's say lowest their calories got down to in prep was like 2,000. Okay. Let's say it was 2,000. Some people, their lowest was more than that. Some people's lowest was less than that. All right. I may bring their food up with clean food to like 4,500 calories, like no bullshit. And the reason being is because I want to fill them up on clean food. I want to get them satiated. I want to get their muscles just so full of good quality carbohydrates and good, all from the glycogen from those carbohydrates, that they don't even want to cheat on their diet. Okay. So by the end of that week, that 1 week post show, let's say they put on like 5 pounds. All right. That's 5 pounds from good quality food. That's not 5 pounds from bullshit and crumble cookie and Ben and Jerry's and all this stupid shit. Okay. That's 5 pounds of glycogen and water from good quality nutrients. Okay. Now, what I do after that is I'm going to scale it back. Depending on how much the weight they gain and what their look is like, I'm going to scale it back just a little bit because I don't want to keep riding that wave. I don't want to continue to be like, all right, now more food, more food, more food. The post-show phase is honestly probably harder than some points of prep. So what I'll do is I'll figure out, okay, where'd their look go in 1 week? All right. It's not my goal to make sure they're super shredded the entire week and keep them super flat. All right. And I don't want them to be always battling food noise, which is, where RETA Explained comes into play. And I can talk about that, which I will. But I use at the end of the week, I use the data from, okay, where did they go from just clean food? Where'd their weight go? Where'd their fullness go? Where'd their training performance go, et cetera? And then I kind of pull back from there. And at that point, if somebody in 1 week post show still has a whole lot of hunger and I like doubled their food, if not more than doubled their food, then odds are they're lying to me that they didn't eat all that food and they're replacing some of those clean meals with macros of some bullshit food and they're just not telling me, or they're just not eating the food. Okay. Because if you're eating 2,000 calories at your lowest and then you are for an entire week straight are eating 4,500 calories, 5,000 calories of clean food, of good quality food, that's a lot of food. You're going to be super full and you're fullness wise, muscular wise, you're going to be full of glycogen. Okay. And it's gonna be a lot of food. It's going to kill your food noise. All right. So that's what I do post show. And then from there, I figure out, okay, do I got to pull back? How much do I got to pull back? Where do I want this trend to keep going? And then I take that at the same time from a drug protocol approach, just from an androgen approach. I'm not going to talk to you about like what I do with phasing out thyroid medication and Clen and all these things. I'm going to pull somebody back to just TRT. Okay. You've been on cycle and on prep for 20, 24, 30 weeks long. Your body needs a fucking break, man. It does. It needs a break. So I'm going to pull somebody back to like a bare minimum of 150 mgs a test. Okay. Because remember what I said about redlining. If I continue that blast, if I continue that push, if I continue to increase stress on their body, you're going to hit that wall so much quicker. Okay. So for a good amount of time after prep, if that's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I'm going to keep somebody on 150 mgs a test. After I turned pro for 6 months, I was on 150 mgs a test and I put on 30 fucking pounds in the first 16 weeks, I think, after I turned pro. And it was just testosterone and 3 IUs of growth hormone. That's it. Because the less stress, the more sleep, the better training, the better food. Those were the fundamentals. Those were my anabolics. That's what I depended on to grow. And look at me now. I'm in my 290s. And on prep a year ago, I was 217 to 220 on stage. Okay. And I still have obliques in the mirror. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So that's what I do, you guys. I don't redline it after prep. And I think that you guys should listen to that and kind of figure that out for yourself and realize oh, maybe that's why my blood work is always shit 8 weeks post show, is because I'm redlining everything and I'm still doing my drugs and I'm still pushing too hard in the gym. And, I'm not taking enough rest days, etc. Stop redlining because you're never going to gain traction. You can't always make progress. You seriously can't. There's times where you have to pull back. Okay. And a perfect time to pull back to see more progress down the road is that post-show phase. You're going to want to train in that post-show phase. You're going to want to train. Your pumps are going to be insane. You're going to look insane because you just got off stage getting your pro card or winning your show, whatever goal you achieved. Okay. And you're going to want to look sick in the gym. You're going to be all veined the fuck out. All right. But sometimes pulling back means going from 5 days a week in the gym to 4 days a week in the gym, going from 6 days a week of cardio to 4 days a week for cardio. But within that post-show phase, I keep schedule, I keep routine, I keep structure for the client. That is how we have a good reverse, a healthy reverse, keeping drugs low, and something that we can bring in during this time period that's a very, very successful and important tool is something in the GLP family. Retatrutide is my go-to, okay? I don't have any person on semaglutide. I think semaglutide is fucking stupid. Tirzepatide is pretty good. It's got very, very good appetite suppression to it, but retatrutide is going to be the king. And I can say everything. I can regurgitate the same amount or same type of content that everybody talks about out there with retatrutide. Oh, you know, it's quote unquote GLP-3. It's a triple agonist, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, everybody knows that, all right? But how I use retatrutide with people is I use it to kind of limit food noise, but also I've seen it improve blood work pretty drastically, and especially in the off season. Okay. I've had somebody on, even myself, I used retatrutide in the off season for about 2 months. Okay. Not because I was too hungry, but because I wanted to see how it would affect my blood work, and my lipids improved. My insulin sensitivity improved. My fasted insulin was lower. My fasted glucose was lower. My A1C stayed the same because my A1C, or maybe I think it dropped a point or like tenth of a point or something. But my A1C stays pretty low the way it is. But the only thing I changed in my off season, by the time I started RETA, by the time I got my bloods done, in that 1 to 2 months that I was on 1 milligram a week, okay, I split that 1 milligram up as well. I didn't just do 1 injection per week. I kind of tried to microdose it a little bit. It was insane. Like, I had a lot of improvements. The only thing that I changed was bringing in that RETA, and it improved my lipids, my fasted glucose. I did get tighter. I did get leaner without changing my diet, without changing my cardio. During this time, I had 0 cardio in my plan at all. No off-season cardio, nothing. Steps were probably around 8 to 10,000 per day, which is usually what I get normally. But retatrutide is very, very effective, and it is a tool. And it's something that can be utilized to yield a certain outcome and to also help a client mitigate some food noise. But I think sometimes people are using it too much as a crutch. These GLPs are used too much as a crutch. Retatrutide this, tirzepatide that, or GLP-3, blah, blah, blah. Like, why are we depending on some of these things as if you can't diet normally, you know? Is it a tool? Yes. Can it be used effectively? Yes. Is it starting to be prescribed? Yeah, that's fantastic. That's good. I'd rather have somebody, you know, on retatrutide than on semaglutide, and they're not eating shit and they're losing bone mineral density and having all these issues with their gut and whatever. But it doesn't take away the fact that you can still get peeled and you can still get healthy without retatrutide. Seriously, okay? It's effective. And dosing wise, I would start off at, you know, 1/4 milligram every other day, every 2 days. Figure out your tolerance. You're probably not going to notice much appetite suppression right off the bat if you're doing like 1 to 2 milligrams per week. If you get upwards of like 8 milligrams per week, which I've not done personally, but I've had somebody, we went from 6 to 8, pulled back to 6 right off the bat because digestion started taking a hit and it was slowing down the GI tract so much that they're having a very difficult time excreting waste. But I think a good sweet spot for most people is around that 3 to 6 mark in terms of weekly milligram dosages of retatrutide. Something that is very helpful and something that's very useful that I've used myself, that I've used in prep clients, etc., is MOTS-C, MOTS-C. Okay. Now, MOTS-C is a peptide where it's more of like a exercise mimetic. Okay. So what I mean by this is that it tells your body, it kind of sends signals like, hey, I'm exercising and we should burn more calories. We should use fat as fuel and we should increase lipolysis and fat oxidation. Okay. But it does that without increasing your heart rate. All right. So it's not a stimulant. It's a very, very unique peptide. All right. Now, when I've taken it myself, when I've taken MOTS-C, I've taken it at 1 milligram per day, so 7 milligrams weekly. I've also taken it at 2.5 to 3 milligrams per day. All right. I didn't really notice much more from 1 to 2.5. Once I got to 3 milligrams per day, I noticed, and I would split that 3 milligrams up. I would do 1 milligram AM, 1 milligram midday, and 1 milligram after my workout. I noticed like my body would heat up. Okay. Now that may sound weird for some of you guys that know me because I'm always hot. I'm surprised I'm not sweating right now. Okay, I'm always sweating. But I noticed a significant increase in my body temperatures. All right, which was uncomfortable for me. But one of the biggest things that I noticed for around that 2 milligram per week mark, or 2 milligram per day mark, was insulin sensitivity, nutrient partitioning. I felt so damn insulin sensitive, and it felt like I could eat food. My calves would just like vein out as if I pinned some insulin and had a muffin afterwards. And I'd be like, holy shit, like I'm kind of hungry, like an hour later. It was great. Like, I think MOTS-C is fantastic. And MOTS-C are one of those peptides where if I can get away with using a peptide and using less of a dose of an androgen or some type of quote unquote fat burner like clenbuterol, you know, if I can get away with using MOTS-C and only 20 micrograms of clen or no clen at all, then I will. If that person can afford MOTS-C and SLU, maybe those two combined, or just MOTS-C, or maybe just retatrutide, and I don't got to use a stimulant like clen in there, then I will do that. Okay, so that's where the application of MOTS-C comes into play for me. Is if I will deploy it, if it means that I'm getting a benefit from it, and I can also use less of something else. Okay, because it's not my goal for my clients to use the least amount possible compared to who else they're gonna be on stage with. Like, it's not my goal, boast to be like, yeah, this person only used this amount of gear. With the amount of gear, the amount of pharmacology that we deploy, peptides, supplements, whatever you want to call them, the dose is based upon the response. Okay, so I'm basing things off of the response. I'm not basing things off of what I've done in the past for other people's body. Okay, so if somebody doesn't really like MOTS-C, and let's say they get a reaction from it, because some people get hives from injecting MOTS-C, and they just don't respond well to it, then that's okay. Then I'll just bring in something else that is going to get a similar effect, or bring in something like clen. So everything that I'm talking about here today, base the dose off of the response. That is one thing that people neglect, is that they base their dose off of what they hear, their YouTuber guru who's done X amount of drugs, and he says, yeah, you guys can stay healthy by cruising on 600 milligrams of testosterone. Like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? All right. Do you think, like, nobody's body is created equally? All right. There's a reason, I do not know a single pro that has 600 mgs of testosterone as their TRT dose. I'm almost 300 fucking pounds, and my TRT dose is 150 milligrams of testosterone per week. All right. And I can maintain my size and my performance and my sleep and my recovery off of 150 mgs of test when I'm cruising. Base the dose off the response. That's kind of how the main premise of what I'm gonna try to say here. And another peptide that's getting a lot of news lately is SLU PP332. It's something that is very misunderstood, and right off the bat when it hit the market, it was like the bee's knees. It was the best thing ever. People were like, this SLU is absolutely insane. I prefer SLU. I like SLU. Okay, SLU is something where I've replaced clenbuterol with people in their contest preps with SLU. Doesn't mean it does the same thing, but I've noticed that, hey, if we can like lower their clen dose and not have them stimmed out throughout the day, and they cramp from clen, and they get anxiety from clen, it gives them sleep issues, and they sweat constantly, etc. And I can still help see that they're visually improving, and by having SLU in there, then I will do that. But everybody started jumping on SLU right away, like, 250 micrograms twice a day, once a day, 3 times a day, etc. 500 micrograms, 1,000 micrograms, etc. Right now, there's a lot of data coming out where it says that SLU should be dosed in the milligram dosages, okay? And I've done 2 milligrams of SLU before, and I've noticed a significant increase of body temperature. And I don't want to say I got like flushed, but I felt like if you think about if you inject melanotan too, sometimes you get red and flushed and you feel heated up on your face, etc. I didn't feel it to that extent, but I felt a little, I felt warm everywhere compared to if I took 500 micrograms. Okay. So a big thing with SLU is, does it work? What dose works? Yes, it works, but we're trying to still figure out the dosing. And there's people out there that are, doing their own experimentation of their dosing of SLU, injectable versus oral, etc. Right now, I'd say the injectable SLU, unless you know how to brew it, is worthless. You can't just take injectable SLU and put backwater in it and say that it's good. It's not going to be stable. It's going to crash because it does not hold concentration and stability within bacteriostatic water. That's what I've found out. That's what I've learned. That's what I've heard from other people. So don't just jump on the bandwagon of the next best thing. You're like, oh shit, SLU is injectable now, and I've been taking the oral version. Oh, maybe there's gonna be less hepatotoxicity if I take the injectable version versus the oral. Well, where's the data to show that orally it was causing stress on your organs, your internal organs? Don't just like jump to these conclusions if there's nothing conclusive about it. Okay, so at the end of the day, are peptides useful? Yes. Is the data coming out about them looking promising? For sure. Are there things that we don't know much about yet? Absolutely. Okay. It's not my job to treat my clients like the guinea pigs. It's not my job to tell you guys what I would do if I were you, if you were able to source some of these things. No, it's my job to just give information out about how I've used them personally and my experience with them. But if I were to leave you guys with any piece of advice here as I end this video, is that there's a lot of information out there, and which is a good thing and it's a bad thing. But take that information and do with it what you will. Try it on yourself. Maybe don't try it on yourself. Maybe if you're too nervous about trying something, that's completely fine. Wait until more data comes out. Ask questions. If there's one type of person that I avoid in this world, it is the person that only listens to one source of information. Okay. And now what I mean by that is if I meet somebody and I can tell that the only political news that they get is from CNN, that's the only thing that they'll listen to, and they only bring up headlines to me instead of what actually is going on, the body of that story, okay, of that quote unquote news. If they only listen to one news outlet and one media source, then I'm going to avoid that person because they are not open-minded. Okay. Same thing with the drug world, guys. If you only watch one person on YouTube, or if you only get your information from one podcast or one coach or one pro bodybuilder, and you're not open to hearing other things from other people and their experiences of life, and you are not going to respect their opinion and hear their opinion, you don't have to agree with them, but why the fuck would you expect them to listen to your opinion? Okay. So listen to different people, listen to me, listen to this person, listen to that person, figure out what works for you. Create your own opinions off of fact. Don't create your own opinions off of emotion and opinions of other people. Okay. That's what I'm going to leave with you guys for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think it's absolutely sweet that I'm able to do another one of these videos for you guys as well. My YouTube channel is at over 1,000 subscribers now, which is absolutely sick. It's been blowing up the videos, and I've heard that the female videos are actually blowing up more than the guy videos, all right? Like the coaches, the bodybuilders, etc. And that's kind of cool. And I think that's really cool because that tells me females are becoming more comfortable with sharing information and sharing their experiences. And I think that's really, really cool. So girls out there, keep doing your thing. Whoever's, getting invited onto this YouTube channel to make a video, talk your shit, show how you can be of service to people and that you're more than just a competitor. I think that's super cool. With that, if you just don't know what the fuck to do, if you are missing it on your show day, if you have a coach that is not communicating with you, if you have a coach that just doesn't know what the fuck they're doing with drugs, that is reading your blood work and ignoring different things in your blood work that are very, very important, but they just brush past it, then please, if you want to step it up a notch, if you want to win your pro show, if you want to turn pro, if you want to win your first show ever, and you want to have a successful contest prep, come in fucking peeled, come in full, have a fantastic peak, have a great healthy rebound, then please hit me up. You can email me at justicefit, justicefit20 @gmail.com. I prefer you don't email me because that's not where I respond to the quickest, but in the description below, I will leave my my website, my intake form to submit a physique audit. Okay, and a physique audit means you submit your photos with me. You tell me, you know, what you want to do with myself. I break down your photos in front of you, with you, for you, either on a call or on a Loom video, and that is our application. Okay. I don't just send you a Google form, but hey, here's my application to work with me. No, I'm very, very grateful. And I want to say the word privileged to be able to work with select people that want to work with me. I don't coach everybody that comes my way. So that's why I narrow people down with a physique audit. Is this kind of breaks the ice for us. If you want to just have a completely different experience than what you've been having, then please, let's get in contact. My information will be in this video. And with that, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you need anything from me, just feel free to reach out, and I won't charge you to give you my opinion or read some labs, etc. It's my job to help you guys and to improve our sport. So with that, I appreciate you again. Make sure to use code NICK10 with everything hostile. Code NICK10 with Elevate Cream of Rice, but you can try that code. It's not going to be there. It may be there eventually. I don't know. But with that, you guys have a wonderful day, and I appreciate you again.